welcome back to the App Growth Show. This is part 4 of the High Five mini-series, where we are spotlighting the standout marketers and the app leaders in the industry. They have come in here, shared hard truths, tough love, hard-earned advice, and whether it's their personal triumph or just cringe-worthy moments, nothing is off the table. So today we're looking at creative strategy. We know it fuels UA. We know that with AI in the mix, it's a marketing superpower. But as we know, all power in the world means nothing without performance. So here we are bringing together two guests who thrive on, I think, turning creative chaos into gold. Peter Jung, head of UA and creatives at App Guardians. You were on our last chat, our last show. And if you're watching and you tuned in, you know Peter brings the goods and some other goodies because he's going to bring a little bit of a game show twist here. He's got some creatives. You live in creatives, Peter. I can only say great to have you back. And yeah, you really hit home with how scrappy creatives can be very polished ones. So great to have you back and have you coming to me from Seoul today. So you are a trooper coming in very early in the day, very, very pumped, I imagine, for the show.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. Yeah, it's so good to be back. I can talk all day about creative. So yeah, really excited.
And stepping in for his High Five debut here, Luis de la Cámara, VP of Marketing at Rovio. Luis, great to have you. We know you've been on a couple shows. This is your first time here and looking at creatives. So yes, you have been instrumental in driving the success of some of the biggest IPs in the gaming industry, Angry Birds and more. But you're more of a product marketing guy. So I guess creative is it's going to be a little bit of a new or a return, maybe a comeback to an area you haven't been looking at for a while, right?
Yeah, hi Peggy. Yeah, thanks for having me. And of course, creative is one of the biggest levers in growing games and apps and products. But yeah, excited to be here and saw the last episode with Peter and quite humbled to be able to be on the show with a real creative expert like Peter. I was just sort of joking that for me it's been a while since I last led like a creative strategy directly for a game. Obviously, most recent years I've been more in executive level roles, but it's good to kind of get dusted off and get back in the game for half an hour.
Yes, dive in. But I have to say, Peter, I think of him as the maestro now in creative, but you are a master at something else, Luis. We saw it, mastering spins and freezes under pressure because breakdance practice for nearly a decade. I saw you at RovioCon. It was amazing. I was impressed. You have a different talent we don't know enough about, but maybe at some level, that is not so different from optimizing creatives on the fly. I mean, how do you see it?
Yeah, I mean, the breakdancing thing is weird. It's not a lot of people would imagine from like a gaming exec, but it was fun. It was like a kind of it was it's sort of a mix between an art form and a sport. And so I think in a weird way, it's kind of like if you want to compare it to marketing and creative in at least in gaming, which I'm part of, we say it's both an art and a science, right? So it's the combination of both. Breakdancing is said both an art form and a sport. So it's yeah. But anyways, it's been a long time. It's like 15 years since I actually did that seriously. So
yeah, you were doing pretty good on the stage. I was amazed. We were sitting back there saying, "Is that Luis?" Anyway, so let's get into it. Right? It's the beginning of the year. We all have to get back to work, and for some people that means, oh no, crunch time, deadlines looming. So I'd like to have from both of you the one creative hack or ritual or tool even you swear by to get the ideas flowing. I mean, Peter, let's start with you because you were talking last time in our episode about how you work in bursts, right? So is that still what you do? Is that your go-to? You just wait, get the muse, and go into the zone? Or is there something else you're trying out in 2025?
Yes, so I'm definitely still working in bursts, and I've actually added a bit of a twist, and I can actually just name drop it right now. So in 2024, I was mostly utilizing these platforms called Billow. There's also UGC Factory. There's also TikTok. I think it's called Creative Center. But it's basically where you get connected with different creators, and you can request UGCs. So you would upload a creative brief of whatever product that you want to sell. And this platform, these different platforms that I mentioned, will connect you to either different influencers or different creators. For the most part, they're content creators, so they know how to sell. And sometimes they even come up with the script as well. But AI has changed the game. So what I mean by that is we don't actually have to communicate with actual creators anymore. There's visual tools from AI. So how it works, I will show you examples later on, but you can choose from different people. So it's almost like you're requesting a UGC content from AI. So you don't actually have to communicate with the actual person, but you upload a script and it'll come up with the visual, almost like a real person. It's kind of even hard to tell if it's an actual person or if it's AI. I know it was a bit glitchy towards beginning of 2024, but around Q4, there's been a lot of changes in this landscape, and you know how quickly this industry moves, right? It's gotten really good. I would say, I actually tested it as well, and it's gotten better results than the banner ads that I've been making. So I'm really excited about this. It's like 20 times cheaper than actual UGC that you request from people and the platforms that I mentioned. So yeah, AI is here to stay, and it's actually disrupting this ad space.
When you say that the performance has been better than even some of the sort of more manual stuff that you've done, are you specifically talking more about like social network ads on social networks, or across the board, including like incentivized video and places like that?
So this is just for social ads. I haven't tested it out for like the incentivized aspect, but you know what I've noticed from just throughout my career, whatever works on social tends to work on those like incentivized networks as well. So I'm pretty confident that it'll work just network wide, right? And I don't know if it's like a fair comparison, but at least from when I tested it, these AI videos were tested against banner ads that I've made. So it wasn't like a fair comparison, but it still performed better. So how can I complain, right?
Yeah. And which platform is that again, Peter?
Yes. So it's a fairly new platform. It's called Creatify.com. So Creatify.
Check it out.
And you go in there, you get some credits. Of course, you know, there's a paid version, but you can get like I think under 30-second video that you can just test out. Of course, the paid version is much better. You can have different choices of different people that you can utilize. So I think the way it works is they already pre-shot the content with the actual creators, and all they do is kind of synchronize the lips and like the movement to make it a bit more natural with the script that you upload. But I know I've used different tools in the past, and they were very unnatural. It was so like glitchy, and like the lips to the voice to the script synchronization would just be a little bit laggy. But this platform has almost perfected it, I would say.
Do you get a final like creative? Like do you just upload assets, like let's say gameplay assets or like app footage, B-roll or whatever, and then you get your final creative, or it just gives you the testimonial stuff and then you have to edit yourself?
Yes and yes, meaning yes, you can upload assets and it'll just automatically place it, right? Sort of like a B-roll, right? B-roll. And then they also have an in-app like editing tool. So after you get that kind of testimonial video, you can also go in there and play around with the placements of the assets that you uploaded. And they have their little editing tool. The editing tool itself, for me personally, I wouldn't want to use it. It's a little laggy. It's like a web app, right? But you know how if you put too many assets and the files get big, it's a little laggy. So what I do personally is I take just that testimonial video, I export it, and take that video into another platform and then edit it there.
Mm-hmm.
So, but what this does essentially is saves the time for me to actually communicate with the UGC content creators. There's a lot of back and forth, and usually they, you know how humans are. They take at least a good week, to shoot the content and get back to me. But this is instant, right? I could just export it within an hour, and boom, I'm ready to go. You know?
Yep. I love how you say that, Peter. You know how humans are. Damn, undefendable. It's interesting though, because I was reading an article. I don't know the name of the influencer, but she's completely AI, right? And she has like 340,000, 400,000 followers. And it's like, the big question is, do the followers know who they're following? So that's the big one. And we don't know that, but we do know that there's that appeal. Possibly something to stick a pin in, Luis, to check out, as you look at creative.
Yeah, I mean, I typed it in the tab here. I'm like, okay, I definitely need to. I actually have we hired a new creative lead for Ingebert's too, and I have a meeting with him. My first meeting with him later today. Already taking notes to share with him. So.
Perfect reason to join us here. And, App Guardians, I have to say, they're a wealth of this type of information. So I'll zoom over to you, Luis. It's about the creative ritual, not just tabbing it, but actually doing it. So what do you do? How do you balance it when the clock is ticking? Because you want to have that product and marketing that you're aligning, right? But creative, as you said yourself, big lever there. What is it that you do?
Yeah. So, I mean, first of all, it's, I want to be clear that I'm nowhere as close as an expert on this topic as Peter is. Really find everything he says super insightful and very tangible and tactical. I think for me, one of the main things is, as just kind of going back to basics in marketing, it's like, what are people's motivations, and what are you offering from a product perspective? And in gaming, most games that we work in, that I've worked on, have been part of very competitive genres or subgenres. And so trying to find a way to differentiate yourself from, all the other sort of creatives they're being bombarded with. Most likely, if you're getting gaming creatives, you're getting a lot of them, ads served to you, because, whatever the algorithms believe that you're a person that should be seeing creatives for games, right? And so it's and normally within the similar genres. So it's important that you have to sort of cut through and sort of connect with that user. And it's I'll use it as a concrete example. I mean, this is a while back ago. I think it's like 2020 or 2021 or something. I was working at a studio on a game called Tuscany Villa, which was a match 3 game. And it kind of similar to the Playrix games, if you've played sort of Gardenscapes or Homescapes. It was a similar type of game, but rather than having sort of this mansion or this garden that you're taking care of, it was a villa in Tuscany, and like the fantasy was sort of this Italian American character, and she moves back to help her grandma sort of restore this villa, and that's kind of the meta layer over the story layer, over the game, which is a batch 3 puzzle game. And at the time, we'd been acquired by Scopely because of this game. But at the time, we'd been trying different types of creative, and we were different things around the decoration aspects, and different players have different motivations for wanting to play this game. Some was purely just on the match 3 puzzle, some was more for the decoration elements. But at the end of the day, what really sort of differentiated this versus other very similar games was this sort of the fantasy of Tuscany, right? And especially, I think, for Western audiences, especially Anglo-Saxon Western audiences, US, UK, there's this sort of magic about Tuscany, the fantasy of Tuscany, that, you have movies and books and stuff like, what is there, Eat, Pray, Love, or anyways, there's a bunch of these kind of movies and stuff. And so we tried different creatives. And at one point I was like, well, what if we did sort of like a postcard, just a static image, a beautiful sort of image of, one of these kind of roads in Tuscany with like the trees lining the roads, the pathway with the rolling hills, just a beautiful image. And, the reality when people play mobile games, it's about escapism, even if it's bite-sized escapism. And that's kind of, I would say, universal for all games, all mobile free-to-play games. but especially casual games. But for me, it was like, okay, if the fantasy is Tuscany and we know that mobile gaming is escapism, what if we just had an image of this very like beautiful image of Tuscany and it just says escape to Tuscany and that's it. And it was the most simple ad. It was a static little like square banner. And it was like, it became one of our hero creatives. And it was just, we had been doing all sorts of amazing videos where it was like the villa sort of transforming from an ugly villa to a beautiful. Like we've been doing all sorts of things, doing with 3D animation and all 2D animation. We tried so many different mini games, all sorts of things. And funny enough, that little static image became one of our best performing creatives. I mean, there were other creatives that performed super, super well. But again, it was just about going back to basics about like, what are we actually selling here? So again, it goes back to sort of just wearing your marketing basics hat of like, what are you really offering to someone and how does that fit sort of the motivations that they have.
Underlines it. Sometimes it really is the wildest, scrappiest ideas that work.
It's
Yeah.
pretty awesome. That's pretty awesome. Yeah, I
Yeah.
would have never really approached it that way because to me it sounds there's a lot of missing elements because if it's just like a visual and it's just like welcome to Tuscany, it's like what is it? Like what actually is it, right? I mean, I think I'm approaching it too like scientifically.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
really
No.
cool. That's really
I think
cool how
like
it
it's like
worked.
for sure it was, and that was sort of the thing around this image. We had the logo of the game, so it
Mm,
was because the game was called Tuscany Villa, so it was Escape to, and then it was the logo that said Tuscany Villa. But obviously Tuscany is the word that's the biggest, right?
Yeah.
So we were basically saying escape to the game, not necessarily escape to Tuscany
to
itself,
Tuscany.
but
Okay, gotcha.
but it's still the way people see it, and as people would see ads, they don't kind of pay attention to all the details. The message is very clear. It's still Escape to Tuscany. Of course, there's the fact that when you click on it, is this like a
Yeah.
travel ad, or
Hmm.
actually it turns
Hmm.
out it's not a travel ad. It's more of it's more, it's actually like a mobile game.
Right.
But we still kind of wanted to play with that sort of a little bit of the kind of confusion of, oh, this is like a travel thing. It's like, well, no, it's not travel, but here's a way to kind of travel to Tuscany, several times a day in your mobile phone, right? I guess is sort of the underlying
Mhm.
hidden subliminal message that we're trying to show there.
No, that's awesome. Yeah, that's awesome.
That's
Yeah, and
cool.
the stuff you said about escapism, it's yeah, on point.
And the raw creativity, I mean, this is outshining polish. It doesn't always have to go that way, though. You can do this and it can completely blow up in your face. I was just curious if either of you have had that happen. You think you've sort of nailed it, but goes completely the other way.
I mean, I think it happens all the time. I know I shared the creative checklist before, and I've completely followed it, but oftentimes it doesn't always end up with the results that I've expected. I think it's just gotten a bit more difficult these days. I think advertisers are smarter. They're more uh, organic as well in terms of the content they produce. And people just have gotten much better at grabbing people's attention. So, yeah, of course, the creative checklist is a great guide just to have something there, just for you to just check things off to just make sure and remind yourself to not forget about the elements that you have to actually put in there. But I think when it comes down to it, the most important thing is really the visual hook in the beginning, is the first 3 seconds, sometimes even 6 seconds. I think that really makes or breaks it creative. And it doesn't really matter at this point if it's like polished or it feels more raw. I think actually it's even better if it's more organic and it feels more raw as well. If you just scroll through TikTok, you'll know what I'm saying. Yeah, you'll know that, like, what I mean by that is like you'll be scrolling and you'll just think that whatever you're watching is just content and it's just native to TikTok, but it might actually be an ad.
So we know the checklist, and Luis, you checked it out as well. It's certainly a checklist that's turning heads. It had some great impact as well on social. Just curious how that stacks up to your strategies at Rovio. Is it a similar checklist? Are there any parts that you've leaned into, perhaps, or seen real results with?
Well, I think the checklist is fantastic, and that was one of the things I really enjoyed about the analogy. And again, I don't know if everyone's watched the previous episode, but Peter talked about the fishing analogy of bait, hook, and reel in, and I think that was super. I loved it. Like Peter, I really love that. I love analogies because it gets people to really understand something pretty in a pretty simple way, even though it's quite a complex framework that is like simplified extremely well through that analogy. So that's why I absolutely love it. We talk often about, like, especially with video creatives, about like how do you hook someone within the first, like how do you get someone's attention, scroll stop, or like in the first 3 seconds, any video. And so like the way you've broken that down, Peter, I think is super, super interesting. So yeah, nothing to say other than I really found it really a great analogy, and we'll definitely be using it with some of my marketers, and hopefully they won't, tell me to, to shut up, but
Very cool. I mean, Peter, come on. That's amazing.
It's awesome. Yeah. I hope it just goes industry wide, the checklist.
Cool. I think we
Yeah.
got something here. Absolutely. But I'm curious, you're able to have this framework and use that, Peter, but you know, do you sweat it out when you're trying to figure out, yeah, that is really the winner? You have your framework, you're also systematic in your own way, but is there that element of, yeah, is it working, or is it like, no, no, I'm totally in on this. This will help me pick the winner from the start.
Hmm. Well, I do like to be very, I guess, scrappy
Mm,
in a way. I think that's the right
okay.
word. Um, of course, I have my own like hypothesis, and this checklist and having this framework and a system does really help. But then there's this intuition, I guess, the intuitive side. Um, it's that gut feeling, right?
Right.
Sometimes you just know just by looking at the video after you make it, right? After it's produced, you just kind of know when it's gonna do well or not, of course. But and why I bring up the scrappiness is because the only way to really test that gut feeling, and the reason why it's so nice to be in this field is because you can get results almost instantly, right? So you just upload the creative, and there, like in a couple of hours, you just get uh, the results, right? The metrics.
Mm,
And I really just look into the metrics. I think, of course, there is the art and science, and of course, you can have that gut feeling. But when it comes down to it, you can actually know by investing a couple of dollars into the actual ads and see the results right away to see if it's a winner or not. So, of course, there's these elements that I follow, and sometimes my gut feeling can be right. It can also be wrong, and usually when it's wrong, I realize after I look at the metrics why it's wrong. So definitely the checklist is there to guide you to include these different elements to make a creative successful, but make sure to look into the metrics and make sure to test it out. I don't see running ads as wasting money or burning money. It's actually a a source of investment, I would even say, to make more iterations and the ads better, and to give you a guidance into what your target audience is wanting and where they are dropping off and where they pay attention. Yeah, it's good to be in this industry because it's so predictable as long as you put in the effort and you have that testing mindset.
yeah, I'll
obviously.
just say, Peggy, that like the reality is we produce a ton of creative, like a ton of creative, and what actually ends up driving the majority of traffic, let's say installs, and more importantly purchases or spending or whatever. I guess maybe in the world of apps, subscriptions and things like that. Um, the reality is that a handful of creatives are the ones that actually drive the majority of that of those results. Even if in reality we're producing a ton and ton of creative. So of course, frameworks like what Peter mentions is like a system in which allows you to have a higher chance of success, like a higher hit rate, basically. But the reality is that we do put a lot of content out there, and then kind of it's not until you start seeing the sort of how the apps the networks basically start running the ads what actually starts to sort of pick up. And of course, like the more you do it, the more kind of you get a sense of what's working and what's not working. I don't know, Peter, if that's been your experience. But
No, 100%. And it's actually this industry has changed, and it's a bit more beneficial for high spenders. So what I mean by that is the more volume you pick up, the more learning and more optimization. So yeah, it definitely does reward high spenders. And just like Rui said, it's a volume game. So the more you spend, the more volume, the more data you have, the more efficient you can spend, the more optimization kicks in. And yeah, everyone is happy. But if it's the other way around, it can be a bit more challenging, especially for smaller advertisers who have less volume of creatives to test out, because it's going to take more time and more money and less ad budget as well for less volume, which means, especially with that learning phase, I don't know how familiar you guys are with just Facebook and how Meta works, but yeah, they really want you to spend more, bring up the volume so that optimizations can kick in. And this is what I'm seeing also for TikTok as well. They weren't like this before, but now it's gotten to a point where they're rewarding high spenders as well. So
Yeah, I think like one thing, just to just finish on this topic, Peggy, before handing it back to you, is that like again, for those that are coming new into this, people might not be aware that these ad networks, they work as auctions, and basically every user, every sort of individual, let's say they're on Facebook or you're in a specific app and you're getting served an ad, that impression basically that you're being served is being auctioned to a lot of different advertisers, through, this is all done in light speed, through algorithms, etc. And but it's like whoever has the strongest lifetime value often is able to win that impression or that high quality impression, because also not every user is the same. So some impressions are more valuable than others. Besides the lifetime value aspect to win an auction, that means you can just basically bid higher for that impression. You can pay more for that impression. You're more willing to pay higher amounts for that impression. It's also the relevancy score, right? Which is how likely is your creative going to actually create a conversion, like an install or whatever spend, like a purchase or a subscription, like a sign up or whatever. It's that combination of how likely is your creative going to resonate with that user and actually get that person to actually watch the ad and then actually convert and take an action, and then how much are you willing to pay. And so between those two combinations is what gives you the ability to win those auctions and actually serve your ads to the most highest value users. And as Peter said, it's a volume game, because if you start to spend a lot, first of all, let's say you have an app that has very high, strong lifetime value, but at the same time is also, very broad appealing. That's like the perfect combination, because what that allows you to do is, spend pretty widely, spend pretty aggressively, and it means you can win the auctions just basically on the bidding side. But also, as Peter was saying, that means you're also serving a lot of ad creative and you're getting a lot of more data points to understand what creative works the best. And so you can optimize your creative strategy over time as well. And so on the relevancy score side, you're also winning auctions. And so between the two combination, and then if you add an IP on top of that, like whatever, Coinbase, Spotify, our case, Angry Birds, things like that, those that's even like another layer of being able to win that. But it gets kind of nerdy and stuff in this stuff, but for those that are kind of new to this, because I imagine, I remember watching listening to some of your content back in the day, Peggy, when I was trying to learn more about UA, and just so people understand a little bit more how kind of this sort of world works behind the scenes.
So volume obviously is what wins here. And I've also heard that from the indie studios I hang out with at events like PGC London and others. It's like, yeah, that's exactly it. It is a volume game. But another myth I want to try out here, another approach I want to hear your thoughts on while we're thinking about this is, do you need to test and dethrone your hero creative? Because there's a little bit of a feeling of, yes, you can always get better, and that makes sense. But does it really? Do you feel that urge? Maybe ask you, Peter, is there that urge that once you find a winner, and you went through everything to get it, when do you think about challenging your winner? Or when should someone think about challenging their winner?
if this was like 5 years ago, I would say give it a good month to challenge that
Okay.
winner.
All right.
But but now I think it's like challenge right away. Yeah.
Oh,
Like
really?
be
For a
happy, but
day?
yeah, be happy for a day, but doomsday is coming.
Oh
Um,
my God. All right.
be happy that it happened.
Okay.
Celebrate definitely, but yeah, I mean, it really depends on how much you're
Yeah.
spending and how much budget you have. But at least with like high spending companies,
Challenge it right away.
that like low CPI, it does last for a good solid amount of time, I would say.
Mhm.
But it really depends on how much you're spending. But when you have that winner, you want to immediately get into like why it has won and try to replicate the winning elements of that creative. And oftentimes it's weird. It's so hard to produce another creative winner that's like similar to whatever just like that has won that have won. It's so hard to replicate what has won. It's really difficult from what I've noticed, but it's not impossible. And oftentimes when it comes to like human elements, if there's like a creative winner and there's like an actual person involved in that video, um, what I've tried was using another person um, and just switching out the person and having the same script. It has it actually worked as well. So there's definitely elements that you can just take from that creative winner, but make sure to get on it instantly. When you have something and you want to just add more fuel to it as soon as possible, because you don't want to lose out on that. And then especially if you have competitors as well, they'll catch up on it. Sometimes they even steal that creative and just run it as well. Then you have to like talk with the ad networks to bring it down. So yeah, if you find a winner, celebrate, but get on it immediately.
That's that
Yeah,
volume game kicking in again, Luis. Is that what happens over
yeah.
at?
I mean, creative. It's one of those magical things. You're just like, for some reason, it just stays really like really successful for a long, long time. But at the same time, it can completely decay overnight almost at some point, right? So like it's one of these strange things that you don't fully control, and a lot of it, again, I'm a little bit outdated here, like in terms of being hands on and stuff, but I remember, when Facebook was the sort of winning network, um, it was one of those things where it was really hard to beat your like heroes, and there was something about the way that Facebook at the time was, having a lot of, an old creative that performed very, very well, was very hard to beat, and it would sort of favor these creatives that had a lot of data points too, and it would continue serving those creatives. But in every scenario, there was always a point in which, like, at some point, as Peter said, doomsday is coming, right? And the last thing you want to do is be in a situation where you don't have other high performing creative ready to go in your live campaigns, when all of a sudden some of your top creatives are starting to decay quickly in terms of performance. So you kind of have the responsibility as a marketer, as a performance marketer or whatever, to continuously have sort of backups. And again,
Mhm.
I'm not super in the weeds anymore, but at least at the time, we would use sort of test campaigns to find creative that would likely perform potentially as hero creatives, to then put them in our kind of main campaigns.
Mhm.
And again, I don't know, Peter, what's the right methodology nowadays, but but it was, the whole point was that we're constantly trying to test out new creative in sort of testing campaigns and in testing scenarios, to then have creative ready to kind of put into our main campaigns, our live campaigns, we call them, so that the moment some of the heroes started to sort of decay, is that we would have stuff to
You
to
have your
put in there and
backup.
hopefully take over as the hero creative. But
So always having that pipeline of backup. That's a really good point, though, Luis. I mean, Peter, what is it like now? Because you have to have your polished creatives, your challenging, your hero creatives, and you maybe want to make your uglier creatives better in performance. Always have that flow, that supply.
No, for sure. I would say it hasn't changed too much since what Lewis mentioned. We
Hmm.
still have the test campaigns, we still have the evergreen campaigns as well. So you always want to have that test campaign, just like Lewis said. You never want to run out of bullets, right? Once things are going and um, you're shooting a lot of bullets, you don't ever want to run out, right? So yeah, I mean, you could have those hero campaigns, hero creatives inside the main evergreen campaigns, And while you're running that with a higher budget, you always need to test. And that hero creative, once you find it, you need to know how to replicate it and study it so that, we can produce similar results. But, what I think it is, and the reason why it's so difficult to get something similar, it's really weird. Once something wins, it just keeps winning, even if you duplicate it. But
Mm-hmm.
I think the reason why I think it just wins for the most part is that it's very like for the most part these creatives are very fresh, and it might be very fresh to the target audience as well. So
Mm-hmm.
once they see that already, they need something new. So even if we take some of those elements and try to replicate it, it just doesn't do as well because people are already used to it and they have that frequency of seeing those ads before. So I think that's what really separates like the hero ads apart, is because it's so fresh, and sometimes it even picks up low hanging audiences in the beginning, and maybe that's why also it produces such great results. And just over time, audiences get saturated, or they get tired of seeing similar ads again and again. So it's so
Mm-hmm.
great to find these hero creators, but also at the same time, it's very challenging to replicate that success.
Yeah, I just recognize, by the way, Peggy, that we use a lot of and we tend to use a lot of UA jargon. Just for those that might not be familiar with hero creative, what we mean is the top performing creative, the creative
Yeah.
that is our best performer, that is able to get as much impressions and then convert to new customers the best possible, and is
That's
able
a
to
good point,
sustain that
Elise,
performance.
because that's a good point because we do get lost in our jargon. I want to ping back on one point you made about scrappiness. So if we went to balance scrappiness and speed, what are your suggestions there? Is it a tool set or is it a mindset?
I think it's both. Um, so there's definitely the mindset, meaning you never want to stay too narrow or too tunnel visioned into. I mean, it's easy to kind of fall into the creative trap, meaning you did all this checklist and all your homework, and it's gonna win, and somewhat it's very hard to let go of some of a creative that you've produced, right? I think there's definitely that's a double-edged sword. Meaning, of course, you can hang on to it, but if the metrics show you it's not working, you have to let it go, right? You can't get too attached. So that's what I mean by mindset. Meaning, you have to be very open to just let go and really hone in on the metrics. The metrics don't lie, right? The numbers don't lie. Of course, you can play around with the art side of things, but
Mm-hmm.
just never get attached. Make sure you really stay keen on the metrics and don't get too attached. And that should be the mindset you should have. And with that mindset, you'll be able to produce more because that mindset will allow you to really think about just the metrics, the numbers, and realize that it's really just testing, and it's a volume and testing game in the end when it comes
Yeah.
to really finding these creative winners. And then the second part is um, the actual operation side of things. There's definitely tools to make editing faster. When I first started my career, I actually used Premiere Pro from Adobe. Um, so there's definitely pros and cons to that. Pros being it can be used not just for like editing these video ads, but it's actually for like professional video editing as well. But then came TikTok with their own editing native tool called CapCut, which is really focused on mobile videos. So CapCut is great as well. I've used it and transitioned over to CapCut. And then there's another one with more AI tools called Veed.io, Veed.io. I've been just recently testing it out. The reason why I like it is because they have a web version, and even if you upload like heavy assets, it can still handle it. It's been pretty great without it didn't have any lagging issues. So I would say if you want to get scrappy, if you want to be testing out multiple creatives, definitely look into those tools like CapCut and V.io. They're more optimized for the mobile experience, the mobile videos, and not as heavy of a tool like Final Cut Pro or Premiere Pro. I think those are more for like high-end videos, more polished. But if you want to get scrappy, it's the mindset and also the tools that you have at the forefront.
Peter, can I ask you a quick question? Do you are you using TikTok as your testing ground versus Meta? Do you see one performing very well in the other? And then I would say would you say the same for like YouTube Shorts and Google? Like, how do you think about those different ad networks in terms of testing
Sure,
and where you find
sure,
performance and the differences in terms of what works and what doesn't?
sure. So I've still stuck with Meta in terms of the initial
Testing.
testing. Yeah, I still haven't really budged out of utilizing Meta. But TikTok definitely is a new monster out there, but it's very difficult to do it right. What I mean by that is videos that are successful on TikTok will tend to work on Meta, but vice versa is a bit difficult. So TikTok has its own kind of unique native video. It's really weird. In a way, when you look at it, just like holistically, they're doing the same thing. Like YouTube Shorts, like Instagram Reels, Facebook Reels,
Yeah,
TikTok.
yeah,
It's all short form video that's you just scroll through, right?
vertical short form, vertical.
Vertical scroll through video. However, it's just weird. If you open up TikTok and if you look into Instagram Reels, in a way, it's the same thing, but the experience is slightly different. It's really weird. TikTok just has this more native and organic feel to it, and the content that they have it's really like the definition of scrappy, and it's very organic. Of course, just to answer your question, I'm still using Meta as the testing ground, just for beginning of just these test campaigns. But when it comes down to really
Where you find your winners,
expanding,
it's more like in TikTok later.
that's right, that's right. But TikTok is definitely is more difficult to get it right.
Peter, we really appreciate the tips, advice, really valuable. And so before we let Luis go and before we get into our hack and slash rapid fire of what works and what doesn't, Luis, really quick from you, just one tip that will help us either, navigate the highs, deal with the train wrecks. What would it be?
I think we talked a little bit about this is understand your audience, what they're motivated by, understand the different ad networks and what's important to each of those different networks, and then try to find a creative strategy that allows you to and a framework kind of similar to what Peter was sharing in previous episodes. And I think the combination of that allows you to test out a lot of creative and over time learn what is actually working and then refine that strategy and the tactics to become more and more efficient over time, and hopefully find winners, creative winners more easily.
And speaking of winners, Luis, I can't resist it. The pun that it was a winning experience here. It's always a win to have you on the show. I want to have you back. We have more to do, but we'll let you go for right now.
Thank you, Peggy. It was always fun, and Peter, I'm really glad to met you, and find your content very very interesting, and I'll be following closely to stay top of the game. Thanks to folks like yourself. So great to meet you, Peter, and thanks as always, Peggy. It was a real pleasure.
So that was having a real and amazing guest. And I want to get to some real and amazing creatives with you, Peter, because I know that that is where you live. And you've brought some great examples that we can sort of geek out on. So let's bring it on.
Sure. Okay. So let's watch the first video.
So cool recruitment video. Is that what it is?
Yes. What do you think?
Not as fresh and amazing, but I mean, it gets the point across, right? You work, you need money, you work, you get money, and hey, you become a dasher. So there's like this community thing going on. So it has a lot of potential.
Nice, nice. Wow, you actually interpreted it perfectly. You're getting
Oh,
better at this,
okay.
Peggy. Yeah. So this
Cool.
one, the mediocre. What I liked about it is it has these very UGC organic type elements. You
Yeah.
can see that none of this really is like showcasing the app, but it's more of a like the POV, the point of view from someone that might ideally want to become a dasher, right? You see
Right.
money, you
Yeah.
see their point of view about how they, are delivering as they are a dasher, and then there's also the app element to it. But yeah, just like you mentioned, people are aware, but I guess it just wasn't as fresh as
Yeah. A
they
little,
wanted it to be.
little been there, done that. Even I
Right.
noticed that. That says a lot.
That's awesome. That's
I'm not
awesome.
in the industry like you are, with fresh, every day. But yeah, it was sort of like, man, it could have been
Right.
anything. It could have been
Right.
like shop like a millionaire. Who knows?
Yep. 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 That's exactly. Yeah. It was just a mediocre,
Billionaire.
mediocre ad.
Sorry,
Okay.
shop like a billionaire. Okay, anyway, let's bring it on. Let's go to the second one.
Do you remember this trend? It might look difficult, but you can actually make it right on your phone. Download the free CapCut app and select the video you want to use. Find the part you want to use and tap Freeze. Next, tap Edit and crop out just the small part you're going to use. Tap Remove Background and Overlay. Now you can adjust until it fits right over top of the video. When you have it lined up, tap Split. Delete the excess so that the image ends when it lines up with the video. At the end of the image, tap this small button to add a keyframe. Scroll back to the beginning of the image and move it somewhere else on the screen. It should move right back to the ending point. Repeat until you're happy with how it looks. When you're done, it should look something like this.
What did you
I
think?
would say, first of all, cats will always do it.
Mm, good
Speaking as
point.
the owner of two cats, it's always going to be like, oh, what's that? But I get a little lost, and I'm wanting to see like more of the cat and less from the video, and
Right.
it's a little bit intense. I mean, that is really intense editing, even for a beginner to show that. So the capabilities of the app, you're like, yeah, it works, and I get it, but little bit disconnected there between fun with the cat and learning with the video.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Okay. That's
So
very
how did
great feedback. It actually is a top performer.
I thought so? Cats
Yeah, I
and
think it's the cats. Yeah, it's
cats.
something
It
about the
wasn't
cats.
explaining the editing. It was the cats. It was the cats.
It's the
Cats.
cats as the intro, getting
Yeah.
people's attention, and then maybe it does
Yeah.
target cat owners, right?
Target cat over. Yeah, because
Cat
you got
owners, and then maybe they want to edit videos like this, right?
yeah.
Yeah, so it's
I get
interesting.
it.
And I mean, it does showcase everything it does, right?
Yeah.
Everything that the app does, the value proposition,
Yeah.
and
I mean,
then
that well, it just loses it a little
right,
in
right,
the fun element.
yeah, it does. It definitely does. But somehow it worked.
It worked. I won't
Yeah,
argue with success.
yeah,
And
yeah.
volume game. Then you have to go out. You got to challenge this one right away. So yeah.
Right,
Okay.
right, right, right. Okay. And then here's the third video.
Hey, it's me.
Doesn't show me as well as the CapCut, I have to say. And the hey, it's me. I was between like, is it gonna edit the video, or am I gonna have some sort of Bacardi Breezer experience in a moment? Hey, it's me. Here I am. Wasn't quite about editing. Does show you some examples. I'd say it came in somewhere in the middle.
Gotcha. So I actually wanted to showcase this specifically because in a way it does very similar things to the previous video.
Yeah.
But yeah, this video was not it was an underperformer. Did you spot any differences? There's a lot of similarities between this one
Yeah.
and the CapCut video, but what do you think was the major difference?
Nobody cares about a can.
That's so true. Yeah, that's so true.
I would say that would be it. It's not relatable. And you start
Mm,
with like, hey, it's me. But then, we lose her and we stay on the can. Maybe if it would have been a little bit more UGC, or your Creatify or something going on here, I
right.
could see it. I could see it. But we've got too much disjointed. We've got three things going on here. We've
No,
got
100%. I agree.
like the groove, and then we've got the can, and then we've got the video, right?
Yep. Yep.
And to tell you the truth, how many people you know who are in a game or in an app, are thinking, "Oh, I need a tool to make cans look amazing." So
Right.
there you go. Right? It's
Such
a
a
little
great
bit
point.
relevancy here as well. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
That's not what I wake up in the morning thinking about. Doesn't
No,
keep you
100%.
okay.
100%. And it's hard to know what exactly it is. I mean, you see all this editing, but like, what is it? Is it an app? Like, where do I actually get it? There's no call to action, nothing.
Yeah, there's no call to action.
Yep.
Exactly. So yeah. So we're getting better. The more I talk with you, Peter,
Yeah. Wow.
the more I'm going to
I've
pick up
noticed.
on all of this. Seriously. I think
Oh, that's
I have
awesome. That's awesome.
another career,
Yeah, for sure.
2025.
That's awesome.
Creative critique
No,
is what it will be. Well, that
yeah,
was fun. We got to
getting
do
super
this
sharp.
more.
There's
Seriously.
actually one more video.
DC homeowners, did you know you can completely eliminate your electric bill with the Zero Cost Solar Program? This program offers a 0-cent power purchase agreement, meaning you pay nothing up front and get clean, renewable energy for your home at zero cost for the power you use. Here's how it works. With the DC Zero Cost Solar Program, you can switch to solar energy with no money out of pocket, no monthly payments, and no credit checks. It's an easy way to take control of your energy costs while enjoying all the benefits of solar. Every month you're paying your electric bill, you're spending money you don't have to. This program lets you eliminate that expense entirely and lock in clean, stable energy for your home. But here's the catch. This program won't be around forever. Policies are always shifting, and waiting could mean missing your chance to secure this zero-cost opportunity. Don't let this opportunity slip away, DC homeowners. The DC Zero Cost Solar Program is your chance to eliminate your electric bill and make the switch to solar at zero cost. Click the link now to get started.
So she's not real, right?
Yes and no. I think what they did was they pre-shot her, like talking
Okay.
different things, and then all they do is synchronize the lips and like the movements. But she is real. She is real. She is a real person. I've actually seen her in these different UGC platforms as well. But
okay. All right.
Yeah.
So she's a real person. So I was right on that because it looked too good to be.
Yeah.
If we're that far in AI, then we got problems here. So we're not that far. We will get there.
We're getting there.
So what it is as you said, you have the person. It's a perfect hybrid actually, because you have the person, you think of the script, they don't have to rehearse it. It is going to make it. So I get that. Totally. That is going to be such a boost in the volume game, Peter. That's going to be seismic.
Yep.
Seriously.
Yep.
Seriously.
100%. And then the voice is also AI. So you can choose from different voices as well. Yeah.
Wow. So I love it. Checking out some real creatives. This has been a real show with you, Peter. You are really and truly the man. I was right when I called it before. But we want to leave also with some real advice, right? Luis left us with his sort of hack, his advice. The same for you. It has been gold, but leave us with a nugget, Peter.
If there's one hack that I can mention right now, at least in 2025, is AI, and you don't want to be missing out on AI. Even if you're not using these crazy tools that I mentioned today, make sure you at least use ChatGPT or these different GPT type tools, because it can come up with some really cool, innovative copy. So make sure you don't just stick with your brain, even if you want some type of inspiration, and even if you don't fully trust AI, it can still help you along the way when it comes to creating headlines, creating copy. It's very great at it. So make sure you talk to AI like it's like your creative director, and it'll help you tremendously.
Co-create with it. I think that is the secret here. It should be there. It's that voice. And it's great input. It can call the highs as well as the lows, maybe even pick out a couple of flops. I mean, just get used to working with AI, I think, is the point here.
Yep. 100%. Absolutely.
And I'm going to get very accustomed to working with you, Peter. This has been our second show together. We've got one more in the High Five series, a special guest, so watch for that one. And you will be back, and I will be back. So that's a wrap. So big thanks, of course, to Luis and to you, Peter, as well. And yeah, we're only getting started. The next one is coming and going to be a surprise, so keep watch for that.
Thank you so much for having me, Peggy. Really looking forward to coming back.